Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But it comes at a price. Samantha Horwitz and John Salerno work with police departments across the country to bring valuable recovery, insight resources, and workshops. A Badge of Honor TV brings those professionals to you so we can come together and revitalize communities through a better understanding of what's at stake and what's required for repair. So take a load off and turn up your TV. It's about to get real.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam. We are powered by the OBBM network, and you can catch us on all your favorite streaming podcasts and Apple TV along with Roku TV. Very easy to navigate through the OBBM network, just like Netflix and all those other things. All you got to do is just click on the Badge of Honor, and you can view all of our present and past shows. What's going on, Sam?
Yeah, hey, we have got some changes coming up. We are all about free speech and allowing our guests to say what's on their heart and in their minds. So we may have some programming changes. We will always be live on the OBBM network. So if you can watch on your TV just like any other TV show. You download the app OBBM.TV, load it up on your television set. And however you stream TV, you got me and John coming to you live at 5 every Monday. We also have a replay through Roku throughout the week. And it'll look a little bit different on some of the social media apps that we'll be streaming on, especially because I need to learn how to. John's like a pro in the background. He's like, yeah, you just go here and you share this and blah blah blah. And I'm like looking down at my phone right now, and I was like, share. I have us up live, and I got no share button. I just have live chat. So I just shared it. I don't know. I don't have a share button, so I don't know how to do that. Anyway. It says I can, but I don't know. We'll have to do that offline. Speaking of sharing, you and I spoke before. I don't know what to make of what is going on in Chicago. I mean, look, everybody knows their mayor. You guys had in Beetlejuice a bad mayor. This guy, he must have come from another planet, because the number of suicides and deaths coming out of Chicago PD and recent retirees is unprecedented. Every week we are getting notifications. And it's got to stop. The smoke and mirrors have to stop. We're going to hear.
Sam, if you look at it, and I don't want to bring up blue states, red states, whatever like that on a bad note, but, a lot of these blue states is where you're seeing the majority of officer suicides. And it's because they've strapped they've strapped handcuffs and are not giving the support to our officers that need it,
Right. Well, they say that they do. But in reality, you and I have done digging, and we've talked to people there, and it truly is, we have help with strings attached. So officers are not free to do what they need to do through the department. So you and I and a Badge of Honor, we are huge proponents of use your insurance to go get the help that you deserve. Under our HIPAA laws, the insurance companies do not report, and neither do the clinicians, back to your department. It's against the law. Right. So you do not have to be in fear from that, and if you've got a department where all you've got is it's mandatory, you have to go through EAP, F that. Okay. Yeah. We're not doing that. You go outside your department with your insurance, and you are free to do that, because that is well within your right. But you know what we need to do, John? We need to keep talking about this, and we need to get the folks the help that they need before it reaches a boiling point. And we talk about letting the pressure off a lot. And our guest tonight, he's a current police officer. He speaks nationally, member of peer support, has lectured and spoken at IACP, CISM, the whole program. He gets the full package. And that's why tonight's episode, unload your backpack, because that's what we do. We take every crappy thing and it's like a rock that we stick in our backpack.
I watched that video, and it couldn't be more clearer than his video that he shared with us. And when he comes back on, I hope he shares it with everybody else, because for every law enforcement officer out there to see that, it resonates.
Yeah, for every first responder.
With every first responder, it resonates huge. What an amazing video.
All right, so let's bring Sean on right now. Sean Peterson, welcome to A Badge of Honor TV.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
You bet. You are a model of what it means to be dedicated in your work life as an officer, but also in taking care and helping folks to understand that you must take care of you as well. And before we dive headfirst into that, because it's so important, tell everybody watching and listening on their favorite podcast app a little about you, Sean.
Well, I'm Sean Peterson. I am a sergeant in Taunton, Massachusetts for the Taunton Police Department, which is roughly about 35 minutes south of Boston.
Couldn't tell by your accent.
Yeah. Listen, you got one too, John. All right. So I have about 12 years cumulative in law enforcement, which is some part-time during my transition into a full-time career. I am also a mental health clinician. I went back to school in 2020 to become educated and ultimately licensed to work directly with first responders. I am also a regional director of the Southeastern Massachusetts CISM peer support team. In addition to that, I know we're going to talk a little bit about physical and mental wellness, but this became a passion prior to having a career in law enforcement. I was a strength coach and a gym owner. So I did that for 12 years as well. So I kind of took that knowledge and passion and brought it into the realm of law enforcement.
We touched a little bit on this on our last workshop, and maybe you can answer some of the questions. We were talking about, when we go to our regular physicians and we get our blood workups, right? The blood panels that are done are basic. Just let me see if your cholesterol is high. Let me see if your triglycerides are high. But, with the chemical dumps that constantly happen in the brains of our first responders, the cortisol, the epinephrine, all this stuff changes the body chemistry. There are no blood panels that I know of, that I'm smart enough to know of anyway, that test for increased cortisol or depleted cortisol, or if we are in the right chemical balance within our bodies before we, which is as important as doing the physical aspect of it as well.
Right. I think one of the biggest elements for law enforcement, actually all first responders, to really understand and grab a hold of is assessing where they are at in their life, both mentally, physically, financially, and even spiritually. And I don't mean that in religious terms, although it can be.
Yeah.
But really examining who are they connected to, what's their social circle like, are they hanging around just only police officers or just medics or just fire, and they hanging around the right people within those agencies. Physically, obviously, we start this career with a standard, and then kind of magically it just disappears, and the importance behind those standards. And I know there's some union navigation issues as far as implementing standards or upholding physical stuff, which I get. But the key is that you can't improve anything in this world. I don't care whether you're trying to build a deck on your house or you're doing a recipe, without measuring it first and having a starting point of where you're at. And with specifically or particularly with law enforcement individuals, you can call it either the type A or the ego thing or what. I'm not exactly sure, and it's different for every individual. but it's uncomfortable to really look in the mirror and have an honest discussion with yourself and really say, hey, this is where I'm at right now. This is where I'm falling short. These are the issues I'm having, either in my own life, professionally, or with my family. And these are the steps I'm going to take to address them and become a better individual.
And sometimes it takes a clinician. You said you went back to school and got that degree to help you navigate through that, because, you know, depending on our backgrounds, we may not come equipped with all of that. When we come back from our first break, we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back with Sean Peterson.
Forget Zoom, try Meetin. Meetin is a brand new video meeting service. And not only is Meetin simpler and easier to use and more powerful, Meetin also has the right values. Here at Meetin, we believe in freedom. We believe in privacy. We believe in America. And we are apolitical. Now, to get your free forever version of Meetin, just go to meetin.com, spelled this way, and then where it says promo code, type in the word special. That's your promo code, okay? So go to meetin.com, type in the word special, and you'll get Meetin free forever. I'm Rick Raditz, and I look forward to serving you as a customer of Meetin.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam and our special guest, Sean Peterson. Sean, before we left, you were talking about, you know, almost like the construction aspect, measure once, cut twice. Measure twice, cut once, right? And we don't take a full assessment on our own bodies. And, you know, we look in the mirror, we know what's wrong. But what every officer says, you know, when we take that real look at ourselves in the mirror, we go, it will work itself out. Tomorrow will be a better day. But those steps that you were talking about, we never try to ascend them. We look at them. We know they're there. We know we have to get to the top. But what holds us back? There's something holding us back from climbing that staircase.
I think I don't want to, you know, simplify it by just saying that it's difficult and it's uncomfortable. But I think just in 2025 and in American culture and just the way it is now, we just seek comfort. We look for comfort everywhere around us and convenience, and to, you know, go to a clinician or to go to the gym consistently or to get into a cold tub for do an ice bath or to sit in a sauna for 20 minutes. Those things are all uncomfortable. So I think inherently people just kind of want to avoid them. You know?
Yeah. That ice bath, especially, gotta tell you.
Yeah. Right. But there's so much learning and growth on the other side of it. So one of the things that I think we really need to lean into discomfort, I think, because that's where all the growth is. And there's a reason why it makes us uncomfortable. It's unfamiliar. It's uncharted territory. And mostly whether you're either starting a new position in your agency, a new job, something new, it always feels uneasy and scary. But that usually means that it's outside, there's growth potential there, and it's outside of your comfort zone. So I think there's that. And then in terms
so
of...
let me pose, yeah. Sorry, let me pose that before we go on to the next point in terms of training to be uncomfortable. Because in terms of stress, especially for first responders, when we're, you know, our jobs on any given day can put us in that uncomfortable zone because we just don't know what we're going to get, right? As we round the corner, as we go to the next call, you know, as we have to go to the hospital to take a report of somebody who was just assaulted. You never know, right? Yep. So you're kind of living in this, we'll call it maybe a little bit of a jacked up zone anyway. And then adding these, I'll call them incredible life hacks while uncomfortable. Is there, from a clinician standpoint, if you already have an uncomfortable day and you're adding more things that are uncomfortable, how do you regulate that first and kind of bring yourself down to have less stress rather than keeping the stress going. I don't even know if I'm even asking that right from a clinician standpoint, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I think ultimately what you're talking about is like the comparison between like distress and eustress, which is like a positive form of stress. Although it's still an exertion or a stress on the body, it has implications within the physiological responses that happen. So like if you're sitting in a sauna, there is going to be a stress response or hormetic response in the body, but to navigate that, you have to implement things like breathing protocols, and what you're becoming more adapted to stress. So when that does happen on the job or at home or in your personal life, you're more equipped to deal with it at that time. It's just like when we talked briefly about ice bath stuff. A lot of people would say, why in God's name would you do that? Why would you get into freezing cold water? The reality is that ice bath is that officer involved shooting. It's that domestic call. It's that pursuit that you're in when you're going to effect a motor vehicle stop. It's the same response when you get into that ice bath or you're in that pursuit. You're going to have your blood pressure is going to go up, anxiety is going to increase, your heart rate's going to increase. And what you have to do is take control of that environment and your response to that stimulus. So this carries over in a sauna, ice bath, gym, yoga, breathing to actually calls for service.
You know, Wim Hof, the Wim Hof theory. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Wim Hof theory.
Yep.
Yeah, he really proved that to be so effective. And if people could just play by his rules, man, you would really be able to regulate everything inside you.
Yeah.
You're smiling because you follow that. You follow him.
Well, I'm glad you brought him up because that was so we've been fortunate enough in Massachusetts to there was a law enforcement reform law that came out that made it a requirement for departments to have access to some sort of peer support CISM teams. But there's also been grant money that's been allocated for law enforcement in Massachusetts. So we're very grateful. We were just awarded more money from the state. So I'm very grateful to the state of Massachusetts because what it does is it allows us to have operating funds to host Wim Hof ice bath seminars that regionally we can put on and get all of these first responders, fire, medics, and police to be exposed to this sort of training. And it's kind of that outside the box modern approach to wellness, but it's actually like ancient techniques. And so it's kind of like melding them both together.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah, we've also talked about red light.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Red light therapy is another huge benefiting factor. And when you compile all of these together to create just a wellness lifestyle, when you are a first responder, your entire life and existence for a minimum of 40 hours a week is dedicated to everybody else. It's really dedicated to everybody else's safety, wellness, and health. That's the reality. Then if you add kids and a family and other obligations to that, we have a hard time carving out time and space for us to really unwind and relieve some of the pressure that gets built up from these daily challenges that we respond to. And I think that is unfortunately, and the only way to say it is that you kind of have to become selfish. You have to, there's no negotiating with yourself when it comes time to come home and take care of you, because you can't be an effective mom, dad, sibling, spouse, if you don't have your own stuff together.
But here's where that problem lies too, especially with married folks. Okay, when the spouse is not understanding of what's going on with the first responder, to them it's a typical job. Someone who didn't grow up. Oh, you're at a day at the office. Well, I fought with this one. I had the dead baby. I had all this stuff, but they just think you're at a fax machine faxing your papers. So they don't get it. Why can't you come home and just do the yard work? Or why can't you just come home and cook dinner? that's why, like with the Badge of Honor, we brought in the families to really show the families what our first responders are going through. Hey, there's a 30-minute decompress. Why is he sitting out in the driveway? Well, this is why. And you find that when knowledge is power, man, and when the spouse finds out the non-trigger words, the way to speak to somebody who is battling or having a crisis, you know, that shows major support, and that brings the first responder down many levels.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think you brought up a very valid point. It's a realm in the CISM or peer support world that we're really diving into and leaning into now. We're actually trying to create a conference coming up in April, specifically geared towards families of law enforcement. I think historically, in terms of policing,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it's we're going to have the Wim Hof guy there or some of his proteges that will be there teaching it and exposing the family to it. And because why not? And to your point, what you said, John, that I think is so important is an open line of communication at home. Because what happens when you don't talk, you don't share what's going on, you don't share your experiences at work, and you come home and you kind of just go sit in your chair or you sit in the driveway and then just mumble and don't respond to people, they internalize that. And then they think it's them. They think it has something that they're doing something wrong. And then there really is no open communication where you can both see, you know, what side you're on and why you're behaving the way that you are. I think historically in law enforcement, what you hear when you talk to the more veteran officers is, well, my wife or my husband doesn't need to know that stuff. They don't need to hear any of that.
That's so 20 years ago.
Right. And I couldn't disagree with them more, because that's not, leave that up to your spouse to tell you that. I mean, they don't need to know all the gory details of whatever scene or thing, but let them know what you experienced and what you went through. And now that they have that understanding, that maybe mom can say like, hey, we're going to bring the kids and give dad about 30 minutes to just take a breather and decompress and get settled in before we bombard him with all the other obligations that he has in life. So I think one of the best things we can do moving forward is just communicate and literally just talk about what's going on.
That's a double-edged sword, because it's got to go on both sides. When he gets
we gotta, it is something that we need to increase the communication. When we come back, we will talk more about that. It's so important. Stay tuned, everybody.
Look, when you need to respond to an aggressive situation to protect yourself, your family, or your property, understanding your firearm and legal position are critical. Officers know your skills are only as good as your commitment to training. So know what you're doing. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, we can count on your response. Whether you're a beginner or a licensed gun carrier, Carry in Texas offers basic firearms training, Texas permitless carry courses, license to carry, and basic 2A courses so you can understand the responsibilities, situational awareness, and learn the technical skill required when you carry your firearm. Go to carryintexas.com to find the right course for you. Join me, former United States Secret Service agent Samantha Horwitz, on the range for beginner basics, LTC prep, and range practice. Go to carryintexas.com today. That's carryintexas.com.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast TV with John and Sam. These Freudian slips. And our special guest, Sean Peterson. Sean, before we left, and to everybody else, before we left, we were talking about how important communication is. And now I know myself personally, I have my communication set and skills are horrible. They are not up to where they should be. And that's something I try to work on each and every day. But, you know, when we look at the officer's got to tell the spouse what's going on, there are trigger words from the spouse that could really set somebody off. If an officer pulls into the driveway and all of a sudden that spouse is coming out, hey, did you pick up this? Hey, did you do this? Hey, it feels like now you're back at right. But
yeah, don't go outside.
Feel like you're back at work, because now you're looking at that person as a perp now, and now you're gonna respond in the job fashion, right? So that's why it is very important. I'm glad you were doing this in April, because I think that's going to start saving lives. Not only save lives, it's going to save marriages. It will save it will save families. Just it will bring everybody together. It's a great platform, and that's where we should start moving to. Even our academy classes, instead of having the spouse come on graduation day, hey, how about bringing them there the first day and telling them what's going to be on, what's going to go on.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I think in addition to the communication piece is a large educational component. You need to teach the families and spouses about physiologically what's going on within these officers' brains, their stress response, being stuck in that fight or flight response. And so when they are coming home and they're way up here because they've worked 60 hours that week of incessant dealing with forced overtime and liability concerns and internal affairs and complaints. Now that person, not only are they worrying about their safety all the time at work and performing, they're also worried about, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be able to support my family? And then when you come home with all of that going on in your head and that weight on your shoulders, it's not intentional, but when somebody comes at you with other things that you're not even thinking about, or you're not prepared to deal with, it can cause problems. It just, it's a natural human behavior to it. But when there's that large educational component, which we are really trying to do it. And like you brought up, the academies is a tremendous place to do it, because what we have seen is a huge shift in culture. What started, I want to say probably about 7 or 8 years ago, was consistently getting in front of all of these academy classes and talking to them about families, talking to them about peer support, about CISM work, about stress, the physiology, and what this job can and will do to you, so that when they do come on the job, they already understand that these things are in place. It's normal. They're not afraid of it. And it, just like any other cultural shift, it takes time. But what I've seen with the younger officers that have, 3 years on or less, they have no problem calling and saying, hey, I would really like to get in front of somebody because can't stop seeing the victim from that crash in my head when I go.
But they hit the roadblocks. Those young officers are constantly hitting roadblocks with our older culture from 20 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
These are the people that, you don't need that. You don't need that. That's why, and me and Sam have talked about it like a national standard. We've talked to people from so many different departments. And I was at a Thin Blue Line event this past weekend. And I spoke to so many from down here in West Texas, where there is no peer support. They don't think they need it. We're a small department. We're a small department. We don't need it. Every department needs it.
Even if the peer support is great, go call somebody and get with the peer support from the larger neighboring agency. Nobody's going to say you can't call this number, and that's what needs to happen, is the understanding that this overall we take care of our own culture needs to exist across the board. Sean, are you surprised it's 2025 that more departments do not have this in the academy? Like, here's how you explain the first responder timeline to your family. You need to have that. And one day or a half a day or a quarter of a day, whatever it is, the family comes in and maybe they address it there. I mean, we're so like over the grassroots, us doing it. It's like, guys, we're giving you the tools. Mm-hmm. Just here it is on a platter. Call this number, get with this organization, set it up, boom, go.
Yeah, but the problem with that, Sam, and we've both seen it. All right, I call that number, right? Well, you have to go for a week of counseling, right? My boss won't let me off.
No, I'm talking about setting up the peer support and putting in programs within the department where they can start grabbing. You're grabbing from best practices that exist already, rather than trying to create it all yourself, right? But it's the ego. I want to be the chief that creates our program. So 10 years go by and you still don't have a stinking program.
Yep. Yeah. You both brought up a lot of great points. And again, we're very fortunate in Massachusetts, specifically within my own agency. Now, we'll go back to the education component. You have to, I think, to not have these programs, to say it blunt, is negligent. The information is out there, the data and the research is undeniable. It is there what this job does to individuals, both physically, mentally, and even financially, which can be fallout. You can't argue that there's endless studies done on this. So for you, everything else we do in this job is we respond to data and research and crime stats, and we immediately react to those. Well, we have this data and these stats about our own health, and we ignore them. So I think that it would be negligent. I think the key to this is getting those key stakeholders like chiefs and command staff to A, get educated on this, B, lose their ego, and C, really understand that they're investing in these municipalities have to understand that it's going to save them money in sick time, injury, retirements, if you invest back in your people.
Exactly. Bingo. And when you can explain the money, but when Sean, you hit the nail on the head. When you can explain how it's going to save them money and it's going to save lives and it's going to increase the longevity with these officers in your department, that's kind of when the light bulb goes, oh, well, let me hear this out. When we come back, I want to talk about
point when we come back.
Okay,
on that very note, I'm going to hit it
very important when we come back. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back with Sean Peterson and John's very important question.
Leftovers again? It's time for something we haven't had in a long time. It's time for something right. It's time to make the right choice. OBBM Network TV is always the right choice. Choose right.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam and our special guest, Sean Peterson out of Boston. Here's my cynical point. We were talking about, lighting that light bulb in the chief's head, right? And we're going to save you money. Oh, we're going to do this. Truthfully, I don't see that ever happening. You know what? Hold those chiefs accountable. You had 3 suicides in Chicago in December. Where were your stress programs? What did you do after the first one? What did you do after the second one? Just like they're trying to hold everybody accountable for not doing the fire prevention for these fires in California. They're trying to hold all these chiefs. Well, you know what? You have 2 suicides in 6 months. What are you doing wrong? Same with the military. We had 6 or 10 military veterans commit suicide. Nobody held accountable. Fear them with the accountability of their people, and you'll see change. They don't give a shit about money. They don't give a shit about people, but hold them accountable. They will.
I think we can say
that's
that.
My personal opinion.
The FCC is calling. No,
Yeah.
Hold them accountable.
I mean, true, but we all know the programs that truly don't work are the ones that put that first step roadblock in terms of self-reporting to the department.
If you were a business person,
right? But we need Sean's in every department.
Right.
Peer support, absolutely, but we need Sean's who have the clinical background to just be like, hey, over here.
But if they hold our chiefs accountable. In New York they started ComStat, right? This whole big thing, and oh my God, if your robbery numbers didn't dip, or if your robbery numbers went up for the last 3 months, guess what? You'll lose in your command. If these numbers went up, you lose your command. Well, let's put the suicides on that same chart. If your suicide and your stress response to your officers is going up, you should lose your command because you're not doing your job. They would do it to any CEO in any big business. But here we have lives. But we're the law enforcement and our first responders are always being looked at as second-class citizens. And you know what? They think they're robots, and we're not. Once they start looking at first responders as humans and family people, then maybe we can make a change. But we got to keep voicing that out, calling the bad people out.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I agree with it. You brought up a lot of more good points. I think it's a multifaceted battle that we have politically. I think an overall perception of law enforcement and what society in general. I think law enforcement in general is taken for granted. I think it's been that's just perpetually happened over the last 10 years. You'd like to say that there's a change, but the climate appears to be the same. But I think I agree with you 100%, John. And I think it's very easy to blame captains, deputies, chiefs, and we put a ton of energy to sitting around roll call and sitting around the report room and, talking about these individuals and what they don't do and they need to do this. I think if those things aren't going to change and it's out of our hands to get to that level, there needs to be things, yes, put in place and accountability, because we're held accountable every single day for our job. But it can start with us culturally, within our own, to step up and fill that void that isn't.
Exactly.
The famous phrase is like, fish rots from the head down, right? We know that. But what are we going to do about it? Like, you got to do something.
The education portion is the biggest portion.
And you break it down into these micro levels, like take a whole shift relief, take the same rotation of guys and girls on that shift. It starts with that supervisor, that sergeant, that frontline supervisor that walks into roll call and sets the tone for that shift and says, hey, we had a horrible call the other night. You guys and girls did a phenomenal job. How's everybody doing with it? Is it bothering you? Like, hey, imagine a sergeant staying up there and said, hey, I had a hard time sleeping after that call. I had a nightmare. I can't stop thinking about it. And I called the CISM team. I'm probably going to go sit and talk with somebody. Can you imagine that?
That would open up a huge window.
Yeah.
Right. But
it really would.
We're like, I can't do that.
You just saying that gave me chills, because I'm like, I'm sitting in front of, and a sergeant said that, because all those young officers in front of them would be like, that comfort level would just ooze off their,
because it'd
bodies,
be like,
man.
My sergeant, like, oh wow, well, if he's feeling that, I mean, I did, and everybody kind of be, you could see the room looking at each other like, yeah, me too. But
we had that chief one time come in, remember, Sam?
Yes, we did have that chief, and he was very open and honest, and that's why they have in that particular department out here an incredible, not only peer support, but they have open lines of communication, top up, from the bottom up, top down. Yep. And it really works. Sean, speaking of personal accountability, let's say we don't have that, because the buck does stop with us from start to finish every day, and we get to choose how we want to start each day and how we want to finish each day. And so you have the background in fitness. You owned a gym for 12 years. You trained, you have the credentials there. If I'm working midnights, let's say, what would you recommend for me? That's my shift, not great because I don't get the sunlight. What would you recommend for me wanting to take the first step in my wellness plan?
Well, I honestly, I think that the first step is honesty with yourself, to say, I'm not where I should be, and I need to prioritize it, right?
Yeah.
So then there has to be the educational component. So how should I be eating? How much effort have you put into what you're supposed to be eating? You can go to a gas station, and if you have the proper educational background, or you can watch a YouTube video that's 3 minutes long you could literally Google, how do I eat healthy from a gas station? And
not the sushi.
Yeah, no. God bless you if you're going to do that. I wouldn't advise that, but you gotta it starts and ends with us. That's a reality that a lot of people don't want to. It's easier to blame midnight shift. It's easier to blame, well, my kids, or I have this obligation.
I'm exhausted.
Okay, right? So then sleep's an issue somewhere. Are you prioritizing sleep? Oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. These are all the things that you've heard in law enforcement.
That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. So what are you doing about your sleep? How are you stuck on mids? Is it a conscious decision to be there? If it's not, do you have the seniority to get off? Then get off.
Right.
Like, I want to stay because I get the overnight differential. Then your health isn't that important to you. Your wallet's more important. Right. So then don't talk to me that you're tired all the time. And I know that comes off a little harsh, but that's the reality of it. We have to prioritize our
own. Sleep is one of the most important aspects. How many officers are really getting true REM sleep, or they're getting broken sleep? I'm
so glad that you just brought up REM sleep, because from relative to the trauma side of things and memory consolidation and how we process these incidents that we experience is done through a good night's sleep. And sleeping and police work are not synonymous, because we don't prioritize it, or we're picking up those details because that we got to have the motorcycles, the RVs, the boats, and all these things that are temporary band-aids to make us feel good for a week. We buy these toys that give us a quick dopamine dump, and then now we're forced to work 60 hours a week and all these details to pay for the things that we have no time to use. So yeah, we're not going to get any good night's sleep. And then it becomes this compounding snowball effect. So in the academy, why are you not taught about sleep and the importance of it? Why do they not dedicate a week? And, you get all these books to read, constitutional law, juvenile law. Why Matthew
Here's
Walker?
Your sleep reading.
Yeah. Matthew Walker has a phenomenal book on sleep. And why is that not required? We know that's one of the biggest issues that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we come back from our last break here, let's continue to break down that recipe. So we're leaving on a high note. Get your sleep. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned.
Rise and vibe with your new elevated morning ritual. Meet Rise by Frequence. Frequency charged nutrition. Rise is formulated with a blend of 7 different organic mushrooms, B vitamins, amino acids, and green coffee bean extract. Rise supports brain health, performance, and focus while enhancing mood, mental clarity, and energy. Enjoy the delicious mango lemonade flavor while giving your mind the nutrients it needs. Get charged up with Rise. Fuel your body and mind today.
We talk about it every week, and we just were talking about sleep, and this certainly is not a substitute for sleep. But what Rise does is it feeds your brain. It doesn't give you a caffeine boost and then drop you off a cliff later, because John, you and I have talked in all of our workshops, multiple energy drinks consumed. Guys, too much sugar, too much up and down, your blood sugar suffers. Go with something that is natural, made of tons of mushrooms that are good for you, all organic. There's no sugar, so it's completely keto friendly. But what you're going to do is it's going to help up here. It's going to help your mental performance and your brain health. I start it's my pre-workout every single time, and I am in the zone through that workout, and it carries me throughout the day. Sam, how do I get it? Oh, it's super easy, everybody. Just go to abadgeofhonorhealth.com. That's abadgeofhonorhealth.com. We've got packages that we put together for you. Subscribe and save. It goes shipped right to your house. It's delicious. So rise and vibe with me and John. Now back to the show with Sean Peterson. All right, Sean, talking about health. So sleep, prioritize. Where am I getting my workout in?
Again, you're going to have to prioritize it. So for me, I was working day shift prior to being promoted. I was in the schools as a school resource officer. If there was vacancies on the 4 to 12 shift that I knew it was very likely I was going to get forced to, or if there was a school event I had to attend, and that's normally when I would go to the gym, then I would have to set my alarm for 4 a.m. and get up and go to the gym at 4. Was it pleasant? Was it hard? Yeah, it was, but it's what you have to do. You have the knowledge that it's necessary, that it's very important for your physical and mental health. You have to prioritize it. You really do.
Yeah,
That's
it takes work.
The easiest way.
Yeah,
it takes work, and
work and scheduling and communication with loved ones.
Yes,
they say psychologically, if you patternise something for, I think it's like 7 days, or maybe it's 12 days, if in that repetition, it will become his muscle memory, and it becomes easier after that 7th or 12th day. So just like if you try to quit smoking, the first 7 days are the hardest, then it starts getting easier. So 7 days of just putting yourself out there, getting yourself into a routine is not much. 7 days is not long, and it will become easier. You're not going to be fighting this routine battle forever, and it's going to get to the point where you want to do it. You're going to miss it if you don't do it.
And you also need the support, though. It takes a support system, especially if you've got a spouse at home and kids, and you say, honey, I need, after I get off shift, I need this hour, right? Because if you've got it historically a honeydew list waiting for you, I mean, we have to, going back to the beginning of the show, we've got to involve our family in every single step. And who knows? I mean, if the kids are grown enough, or every gym has daycare, get everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Not at 4 a.m. if you had to do it on the flip side, or maybe at 4 a.m. I don't know.
Now, and I also, I don't want to go down like a crazy rabbit hole with some of this stuff, but it does often go a little bit deeper than I'm just saying, well, toughen up and make it a priority, because what can happen with a nonstop exposure to these critical incidents and being in this environment and being in a incessant fight or flight response, and a lot of the shame and guilt elements that can come with some of these things, that PTSD and the stuff that we see, can be a negative self-belief and a negative self-perception of you, where you don't, what? Yeah, I put on 50 pounds. I don't care. Whatever. Nobody cares. I don't care what I look like. When I teach, I relate it to, if you have this old beat up car, how are you going to treat this car, right? You're not going to care how many curbs you hit, how many times the wheels, or if somebody scratches it or hits it with a shopping cart, whatever. But if you have a Ferrari, you're going to treat that very, very differently. And sometimes it can be a fallout from trauma. And again, it doesn't always have to be the bad calls that affect people. People can navigate this career and do fine with the things they're exposed to.
If you're a cop with a Ferrari, you got bigger problems, because IA is going to be on your ass.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But you know what I mean,
Miami Vice,
You pull up to the precinct. You pull up to the precinct in a Ferrari. You're going to get some looks.
Yep. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if you are in a hole and you don't feel good about yourself and you don't feel you're worthy of looking good, and then you're gonna take yourself at your own reckoning, and so is everybody else around you. If that's how you carry yourself, and you truly believe that because you have some other stuff going on that you haven't addressed, then that's another factor that can be. So I don't want to just come off as like this, tough guy, or
On that note, I just want to reverse back to where we talked about the frontline sergeants, right? Because you bring up a good point. Some people let themselves go. So when you have an officer that's standing roll call, and he was a prime officer, always put together, and then you see after a critical incident, a week, 2 weeks later, he's disheveled. He's not standing roll call on time, or you see him gaining weight or something. Go up to that officer and go, hey, is everything okay? Instead of disciplining him for being late or being disheveled,
Yep.
there could be an underlying root cause.
It's using these and these instead of this so
Exactly.
much. Yeah. Using this is Sean's job when they end up, calling you. Well, Sean, what's the best way for people to reach out? Because you have just said you are a wealth of information on so many aspects, and we'd be remiss to not have people just get with you directly, whether it's on email or, do you have an email?
Yeah. So my email would be my first initial and last name. So it's speterson@tauntonpd.com. I just use my department email because I've just over the last 10 years have used that to communicate with people in this realm. So that's one of the best ways to reach me. I am on LinkedIn as well. That's how I linked up with you via LinkedIn. So that's another great avenue. And I am also on Instagram. In addition to that, I try to go to the FOP National Wellness Conference every year. I go to the IACP Officer Safety and Wellness Conference. And there's currently a proposal to present in October at the IACP convention in Denver. So, but I'm more than willing to talk to anyone from anywhere about this stuff because I'm very passionate about it. And I think it's conversations and venues like this that really works to shift culture and make meaningful change.
Absolutely. And what's your Instagram handle?
So it's kind of goofy because it's tied into where I used to own the gym and it was called Chaos Fitness. So my name on Instagram is Shawnee Chaos. So it's Sean, SEANY, and then Chaos. So I know I'm probably going to get roasted for saying that, but
it's better than whole body 121.
Right. It is what it is. So.
Okay, Shawnee Chaos. All right, so people can connect with you there. Sean, again, wealth of information. Thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing with us. All the best to you. Thank you for what you do, especially with the folks in your department. But I hope you have the people that are tuning in tonight reach out to you as well.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Appreciate it, Sean.
You
Pleasure.
You bet.
Having you on.
We'll be in touch.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, truly eye-opening, and I know that he's got like so many more. We'll call them life hacks. So get with Sean and discuss, because you are worth it. And it does go to keeping your backpack really light and unloading the heavy stuff. So with that, we talked about peer support. We've got an upcoming peer support training in March that is on our website. So you can go to abadgeofhonor.org. It's a pop-up and register. I'm being told right now the class is actually full. We've got a wait list though, so people will, things come up, it's first responders and they might not be able to be there. But for everybody listening in the Texas market, we got you covered with TCOL credits for that. And so badgeofhonor.org, sign up for our peer support training. It's very different from CISM, and you're going to walk away with a whole new set of tools for you as a peer supporter. It's going to be led by Jeff Freeman and John Edmondson, the two other amazing humans that make up a Badge of Honor. And so get on that and get yourself registered. To all of our first responders out there, we know that you deal with a lot on any given day. Know that you have got a set of human beings out there, no matter where you're living, no matter what department you are in, you've got prayer warriors that love you, that care about you, that want you to get home safe every single night. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for what you do in our communities to keep us safe. To our veterans out there, thank you for your service. To allow John and I to do a show like this and say the S word on any given day on any platform. Hopefully we didn't get beeped or taken down. But no, thank you, because without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. And for our military deployed, our active duty personnel all over the globe, thank you for keeping our shores safe. John, take us home.
Just want to close out the show with our thoughts and prayers are with the Chicago PD, all the family and brothers and sisters out there. We know how difficult this time is right now. We are holding you near and dear in our hearts from a badge of honor. Peace.
We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.